This is Coder Singh, and in this tutorial I will be talking about block pattern. So block pattern is basically a state management tool or library or package, you can say, for Flutter. State management, if you take up any framework like React Native, Angular, state management is a big deal. So I will be talking about how we can implement that, all those things, and how it actually really works underneath. So let's start by adding these four packages: block, flutter block, and equitable HTTP. So let's do pub get. You guys can find the code on GitHub. So let's go to that file. Actually, let's create a folder called models. So model is going to basically have all the models which we are gonna use. So we are gonna create a user model, class user extends equitable. We should have an override method. We will implement it later. Let's add some fields to it. We're going to use a GitHub API to get the data. I don't know what exactly is the name. So our model is done. We're going to create a new package, basically a new folder, and we're going to call it state. Actually states with an S, since we call our models. Gonna create a new file, user.state. I don't know why it's showing me some error. Class user state extends equitable. So it's gonna be an empty thing. So if I talk about states, what all state my application can have. So it's like class user not searched. It's like a thing where when we just initiated the class or your view, but we have not done anything. So that is one of our state. So we have to do something. So if I have to do something, it's gonna be going to a state called loading user state. So now we are loading the user. It extends user state. Now we have a class. Now it's gonna basically user loaded. When the user is loaded, state extends user state, and it's gonna have some values. So we're gonna have final user, and we're gonna get the user from the model thing, and we're gonna do user load state this dot user. Similarly, we will have an error class, user load error state extends user state. It's gonna have a final message of type string, and we're gonna do user loaded state error state this dot message. Similarly, like we have models, we're gonna have like we have states, we're gonna have events. So events are basically an action performed on the state of the application or the state of the model. So we're gonna go to events. We're gonna go to dot file, user.event. That's it. Class. So again, it's gonna be class user events, and it's gonna extend equitable. events extends equitable. We're gonna do implement the override. Class load user event extends user events. So yeah, now we have all these things, but now we have to link the events and the state with each other. So but before linking them, we need to get the data, right? So to get the data, we need repositories. So repository is basically a folder where we keep all the data. We fetch all the data, or we fetch it either from the API call or from the local database of the application. Anything, it can be anything. So we're gonna create a repository. Repository is basically new dot user dot repo. User repo means basically a repository. User repo, and so it's gonna basically have a method of type future user get user, and it's gonna be an async method. So we have try catch e print $e return null. If there is an error, return null. If there is an error, if we are not able to find anything, or we're gonna have var res await. So we have to import a couple of packages like HTTP and JSON one. Import package HTTP again as HTTP. So import dot convert as convert await HTTP get. So in the URL, it's going to be https api.github.com/users. So it gives us a list of users, and if I just do, I don't know, call maybe. So yeah, as you can see, just giving me a list of users. It's going to be login ID. So I'm gonna care about login and ID over here. So what we can do is we can go back to a user model, since it's a login thing, and we're gonna refactor it. We're gonna go over here and refactor it, rename to login. Yes, refactor, validating the specific parameters. Might take some time. So yeah, now we got the basically the login thing, because now I'm getting ID and login. I'm getting it. Now I'm gonna use a factory method, and I'm gonna do from JSON, and it's gonna have map of string and dynamic map. So I'm gonna have a user map ID map login. Cool. So I'm gonna go back to my user repository. Now I got the data. I'm just gonna check if res.status code equals to 100, then it's gonna be a good sign. And we're gonna have var body is equals to convert JSON decode the res.body, and we're gonna have user is equals to user from JSON, and we're gonna have body. Actually, it's gonna be a list since it's an array, so it's gonna be a list of we're gonna have dynamic. We're gonna have a got user. It's gonna be body slash 0, and we're gonna have got user over here. Actually, yeah. So the moment we get the user, we're gonna return the user. And yeah, it's the repository is done. Now everything is there, but we have to link it, and to link it, we have to create a block. So we're gonna have a new folder called blocks. Blocks, and then we're gonna go into a block, and we're gonna create a user block. So it's gonna be a kinda small file, but since it's a small thing, but it can grow into size. So I like to divide the block files as well, but for this tutorial I'm trying to make it simple as possible. So user block. So I'm gonna have class user block extends block. So it's gonna hold two things for us. One is user events. The other one is user state. Yeah. And that's it. And now we can implement the two override methods. User events. Yes, I want user events. And yeah. So initial stage, as we discovered, so the initial state would be user not searched. Yeah. So this is the initial stage of our block. Now it comes to implementing things. So now we're gonna have a lot of if conditions. If event is user loading user event, load user event. So yeah, if the event is this thing, you're gonna yield. So basically we have to put async over here, async with a star, since it's a stream. Yield, and we can say loading. Okay, it's YIELD. Yeah. So loading user state, because now we are loading it, and we're gonna get the user from the user repository user. Okay, now we have to import it, and we have to initialize the repository over here. User repo is equals to user repo. It's too much code, I know, but in the long run, in big project, it's helpful. But if you have a very small project, then I don't recommend this thing. But if you're gonna have a lot of screens and a lot of things gonna talk to each other, so I would rather suggest you use this. So if user null, because we can get a null user, so we're gonna yield user load error state. So it's gonna have some error, user not found. Else we're gonna user loaded state, and we're gonna pass in the user over here. So we have created our block over here. It's simple, since it just have one event over here. Now it comes to linking it with the UI. For UI, we're gonna have a new folder called views. VIEWS, and now we're gonna create a user detail dot file user underscore detail. Yeah, so it's gonna be a stateless one. User detail oops, we need a material one. Yeah, so we have this widget, but now the thing is we have to have a block linked with our UI. So to do that, what I do is basically I create a file in blocks called main block. Yeah, main dot block, and then the class name is main block, and I have a static method of list block provider. So block provider is basically provides block to the UI, and I call it all blocks. I'm gonna return a list of blocks. So the first one would be, we have only one, so we're gonna have a block provider of type user block, and it's a function, it's a method, and we have a create method which is required, and we have a build context, build context, and it's gonna return user block. Yeah, so now everything is working pretty good. There's no errors or anything. Let me just get this one. Yeah, everything is fine now. Now we're gonna come to our main page. Before we go to our views, let me open it, and we're gonna come over here and over here you have to write some code to basically link the block pattern with our application. So we're gonna have multi block provider, which has one property called providers, I guess. Okay, it's not imported yet. I guess I'm gonna import it. Providers and main block, all blocks, which is there. So it's kind of neat and tidy. Otherwise we have to specify all the blocks over here, and which becomes very cumbersome task to do, and it becomes a very tedious one. So I'm gonna come back to my user detail over here, and so I'm gonna build the UI as simple as possible. So basically we have a block consumer which consumes the block. So it takes two things: a user block and the state it's gonna return. So user state, yeah. Now it's gonna have a listener. Actually, let me just copy paste it. It's gonna save some time because you're not gonna do anything with it as such. You're gonna have one return method. So a return is gonna be, actually it's gonna be if state is loading user state, we're gonna return circular progress indicator. If the state is user loaded state, then we're gonna return a text user ID is equals to state dot user dot ID. User name is equals to state dot user dot login. Yeah. Return container if there's nothing. So if state is some error, then we're gonna show them a message. So we're gonna have a return text state dot message. We're gonna have some styling to it so that it's look pretty good. Text style, colors red, and that's it, and we are good to go. But it's not linked, so I'm gonna go to my main one, and I'm gonna, I don't know why there's so much comments, So I'm gonna go to text thing, I'm gonna remove it, and I'm gonna call user detail. Yep. I'm gonna rerun my application. And so over here I have on press increment counter, but I don't want on press increment counter. I just want, okay, so I have some errors in repository. Method not found, get cdb dot, what you talking about? I do have a get method. Okay, yeah, let me just stop it, rerun the application. So yeah, the application has been loaded. Now the thing is, you have not taken care of user not searched, so this state is missing basically. Now we're gonna go to our view user detail, and we're gonna have this thing if, okay, state is user not searched, then I'm gonna return text user not searched yet. And yeah, as we can see, we got this thing, and but on button click I want the user to be loaded. So I'm gonna come over here to floating action button, create a closure, and over here I'm gonna do a block provider off. It's gonna pass some context into it. It's gonna be user block dot add user event. So user event is gonna be load user event, and we're gonna run the application. Let's see it works. So yeah, so it's loading, but let's see if I get the data or if I don't get the data. Oops, it keeps on loading and loading user event. So let's go to user block and see if I did something wrong. Yeah, I didn't do yield over here. So user not searched yet, so I'm just gonna do, yeah, finally I got this thing, user ID 1, username this one. So as you can see, I'm in my main file and I do not have any access to the state over here, so nothing is working. Only user detail is in some different file, but still I'm able to perform some events onto this block and change the state of user detail page. So this is the block pattern, and this is the state management in Flutter. So I hope you guys understood the tutorial. If not, just let me know. I went really fast because I made this tutorial for those people who kind of know Flutter very well and know how the streams work. But if you want an in-detail tutorial, then do let me know. Thank you so much guys for watching the tutorial. Stay tuned for more tutorials, and let me know in the comments if you need anything.